Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I am your host, Shana James, and I'm here today by myself to talk about a topic I've been thinking about this week, and it is conversation. And conversations it's one of the ways that we most interact with people, right? We're relating with people constantly by having conversations. And some conversations are really exciting and inspiring, and other conversations are boring and dull, and other conversations have spark and chemistry, and other conversations are really awkward and strange. And what I want for you is to give you some tools to be able to have a little bit more control over a conversation, to shift a conversation, to take one that feels flat or boring and light it up, or to take one that feels kind of shallow and empty and deepen it, or to take one that feels very friendly and turn it into something that is sexy and hot and connected. Once you understand the different levels of conversation I'm going to share with you, you can change the way your conversation is going. And so you no longer have to be stuck. I mean, so many men tell me about conversations, and women too, and about conversations where I call them captive audience, where someone's just talking and talking and talking, and you're trying to be nice. And so you just let it go on, and the fear, like there's too much fear of saying, I'm not enjoying this right now, and not knowing how you could say it in a kind way that wouldn't kill the attraction or kill the connection. Saying something different like, hey, you know what I'd really love to know about this is that, or, this conversation is somewhat interesting to me, but I feel really passionate about knowing this, or where I really want to go is here. And that's often something that men tell me is really challenging. And so I want to give you these tools today. I think this is going to be really helpful. And I'm really curious to hear how this goes after you start to use them. So please let me know. One more note on that is, if you start to think about what has you be afraid to shift a conversation, or to end a conversation, or to transition a conversation, you can start to get a sense of where there's a part of you trying to prove something about yourself, or trying to defend something about yourself, or trying to be liked. And all of this shows up in conversation, and that's the background. And so that's a lot of the work I do when I'm working with clients, is exploring that and creating more freedom from that. So these levels of conversation may not take you as deep into the invisible factors of influence that I work with, right? There's still perhaps going to be some work to do with those invisible factors. And at the same time, a lot can happen from shifting the words in the conversation. All right, I'm going to go through these 4 levels of conversation that you may or may not realize are happening all the time. And level 1 is the most surface level of conversation, or it tends to be, so I'm not judging, right, that level 1 is the worst and level 4 is the best, but this tends to be the least connected kind of conversation, and it's about topics of interest. So these conversations are about something other than yourself or the person you're with. And that includes stories about the past or talking about events that are going to happen in the future. You may be talking about an event, a concert, a party, a place you went, a restaurant, a coffee shop, a ski resort, a park. You may be talking about a thing, the menu. You may be talking about furniture. You may be talking about a car. I was on a date one time where we talked about racism and we talked about tantra, and it was really interesting conversation. There was nothing wrong with it. A lot of it was in the realm of theory and it wasn't as personal. And so conversations on this level can actually be really exciting sometimes. Sometimes they can be bland and feel kind of empty, but sometimes they can be really exciting and intriguing and intellectually stimulating. And in my experience, though, they tend to be on more of a heady or more of an intellectual level. And so if you are noticing that your relationships with women are not deepening into that kind of a woman melts or a woman looks at you with those kind of gooey, gazing eyes, or if if you're in a relationship with a woman and she's not being warm with you, this could be one of the reasons, is that many of your conversations are about topics of interest. Level 2 is about personal information. So it involves sharing and asking about things that are personal. And this can create more connection and intimacy because they include learning about the person you're with and the other person learning about you. So in these conversations, you get to know each other's history, how you enjoy spending time, but not just what you did. It's more, it's when I think about the personal information, it could be your family structure, right? Details about your past, where you lived, where you went to school, places you've traveled, how you spent your time. So some of this is the topics of interest, but there's a more personal spin that you're adding on it. And that starts to help you understand a person's background and helps you be understood. And that's an important part of getting to know someone. And I think about dates that I've been on where we talked about each other's family and, where we grew up and things we've done in the past. And it still lacked a sense of depth or of emotion or of connection. So when you want to start creating more of that intimacy, more of that connection, level 3 becomes important because that involves emotional revealing. So these conversations include sharing and asking about feelings, preferences, and desires rather than just facts. Rather than, I had an older sister, right, which would be level 2, personal information, it's how I felt about being the younger sister, how I felt about, having someone who came before me who was setting the stage for our family, and how intelligent I was supposed to be, or, what else was supposed to happen, right? There was someone else in my life who I was relating to. And that, when I start to get into the emotions about that, how that felt for me, that becomes emotional revealing. This also gets deeper into what's important to you, how you feel about your current life situation. How is it to be working in the job you're working in? What lights you up on a daily basis, and what has you feel afraid, disappointed, any of those things. And again, I just want to go back to so many conversations I've had around vulnerability with men. And this is in my TED Talk, if you haven't seen it also, where you can share vulnerability from a very grounded, clear place, a place of knowing how amazing you are, and that for you to experience fear or disappointment or any of these emotions that some people call negative or darker doesn't make you unlovable, doesn't make you seem weak or unmanly. And so as you start to bring in this emotional revealing, you can talk about these things and it doesn't necessarily push a woman away. So you can also get into how you're feeling in the moment, right? What's happening for you right now? And that actually leads into level 4, which is relational revealing. And this tends to be the most intimate and where the most spark and hotness happens is in that relational revealing. If you're talking about how you're feeling right now, and then you start to bring in relation to the person in front of you, if you're on a date, right? You start to bring in, oh, I'm feeling tingles in my body, or I'm feeling really excited and passionate, and I noticed that when you walked in the room, my whole state changed. I felt lit up in a way that I hadn't all day. That relational revealing can feel really vulnerable, and it also creates the most spark. These tend to be the most raw parts of conversation, unedited revealing, of things like attraction and self-consciousness and, like I said, fear and moment to moment. These are the conversations where you can be looking into someone's eyes and be totally present and sharing what's happening between you. These are the conversations that if someone's talking and they're going on and on and on, you might look the person in the eye and say, wow, I notice I'm feeling distracted. Or I notice I'm getting a little bit, I was going to say bored. That's a little bold to say, like, I'm feeling bored. But you could say something like, oh, I'm getting distracted, and hold on, let me think about the question I really want to ask you right now, because there's something I really want to know. And I want to get to the heart of it, right? You can also give yourself permission to slow things down and to not have to know right away what you want to ask, but that you want the conversation to take a different path. These conversations are more risky, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And if you haven't had these kinds of conversations before, what you're going to find is, again, it's like the spark can start to ignite where there was no spark before. So some examples of this one, because it's a little more rare, are when you said that, I felt. When you just talked about, your family struggle that's happening right now, I felt sad, or I felt a little bit of care and concern for you. You are starting to admit that how you're feeling is changing in relation to the person in front of you. A really fun one and risky one can be being with you right now, I feel. You might admit to that excitement, that attraction. You might admit to the self-consciousness. You might admit to both. We're so paradoxical, and we have such a range of experiences and emotions that happen at the same time. We can feel totally turned on and completely self-conscious at the same time. Another one is, one thing that feels scary to tell you right now could be something about being nervous. It could be, I want you to sit closer to me. It could be that last thing you just said, I felt upset, or, my feelings got hurt. Then we're no longer glossing over the things that are creating distance. I had a mentor in the past who, I love this example. He was talking about how you can think of, there's a pane of glass in between two people. And as we start to hide things or just stuff things, like we get hurt and we don't say it, or we feel attracted and we don't say it, or, all the things that we don't say, not that we have to say everything, but the things that we don't say that then we keep stewing over, or we're continuing to kind of obsess over them. it's like we're throwing paint on that pane of glass. So eventually we can't really see each other, and there's all this distance between us. Another interesting one is what I want for you, or let's say, what I want right now is for you too. Or what I want to do right now is, I want to look into your eyes, or I want you to look into my eyes. I would love to put my hand on yours, or I'd love for you to hold my hand. It could also be the opposite. What I would actually want right now is to move a couple steps away from you. But you could do that in a way where you're not brashly saying like, oh, I need to back away. Or I need some space, right? Think of the difference between I need some space and, you know what, I need to take a couple steps back, or I want to take a couple steps back because I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed, but I want to stay connected to you while I do it. I'd love to still hold your hand, or I'd love to still look into your eyes. I'm going to take a step back and just see how I feel. So you can start playing with these to create and to keep and to deepen connection. Like I said, each type of conversation, there's no right, there's no wrong. Each type of conversation has its own time and place, and you just start to notice, right? Constantly having relationally revealing or emotionally revealing conversations can be overwhelming. But constantly having in conversations about topics of interest can be dry and flat. So for most of you, you're going to want to be creating more intimacy. And if you want to spark passion and bring more of that melting and sighs and moans and giggles and even tears into your connections and add intimate conversations, then you're going to want to start to include level 3 and level 4 into your conversations. So take a moment, you can even pause this recording, but take a moment or a couple minutes to check in to see what levels of conversation do I tend to have. And then if there was something stopping me from having the emotional or relationally revealing conversations, what would that be? And as you answer these questions, you start to go deeper and deeper into whatever's holding you back from being free to be yourself, from being bold and from taking risks. And the more freedom you have from that, the more intimate and connected you get to be. One last piece I want to leave you with today is to also look into your relationship with silence. One of the things I talk about in my 10 essentials of attraction or authentic attraction that most men never learn is around silence. And silence is another place where spark ignites. If you're filling in all the words, it's kind of like music without the space in between, all the notes stuffed up against each other. And that creates more of a cacophony. So start to consider, how do I feel in moments of silence? And start to play with having more of them. And notice if you do feel an awkwardness in silence, that you can start to understand, well, what is this awkwardness? What's coming up for me? One of my favorite things to do in my client sessions is to do a kind of eye gazing or meditation where we're silent. And sometimes it's only for a minute or two. And then it reveals such deep and tender fears and frustrations from our past. But the more we do it, the more we practice with that, the freer we get. I think I've said this in other recordings, but I remember going to a white tantra workshop, which is not sexual tantra. It's more the consciousness tantra. And I sat for 8 hours or so in front of people, just looking into their eyes in silence. And you start to really see what facades we're putting on to try to be loved, to try to be liked, and what we think people think about us, and where we get stuck and less free because of that. So this is one of those where it really only makes a difference if you go out and practice it. So go out and practice, check this out, start to integrate some of these into your conversations, and then let me know how it goes. Also, if you haven't heard, I have a new sponsor for the Man Alive podcast, and it's a company called Let's Get Checked. And they save you time, money, and awkward conversations by providing at-home blood tests. And if you're anything like me, you don't want to waste your precious time and money going to doctors. So by testing at home, you get to avoid all of that, and you get to avoid having the awkward sexually transmitted infected conversation with your doctor. So you can test your hormones to get a clear picture of your testosterone level, and you can test for other health concerns at home. It's super easy. You can go to letsgetchecked.com, order the kit you want, and enter the code MANALIVE for your 20% discount. You receive your test in the mail, and once you return it, your results are available online in 2 to 5 days. So head to letsgetchecked.com today and use the coupon code MANALIVE for your 20% discount. All right, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and let me know how your conversations go. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.